There we go. Now we're recording. You'd think I'd know Zoom, with all of the
practice you have.
Yeah, all the practice everybody have. Desktop 2, dang it. Okay, and can everybody see that okay? Or is that the wrong desktop? Do you see the agenda?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. I'm not getting the outline I usually do, but there we go. Okay, sweet. Well, welcome to our virtual meetup. Salt Lake City Python. If you're here for the PHP group, stick around because I'll show you why you should probably use Python instead. That joke's getting old, eh? That's okay. I like it.
I had a role recently converting PHP to Python, so obviously it's better.
There you go. We are part of a group of affiliates known as Utah Python. There is Utah Python North, or Python Utah North. That's based in Logan, typically. There's also some other meetup groups that we have linked around here. We love and endorse them all. They are great sets of people who run those. Hopefully when we're back to in-person stuff, definitely check these out. I'm hoping to see an explosion in meetup participation after the pandemic, and it'll just be a good time for all. Yeah, let's see. Is Joe here tonight? No? That's all right. So Joe runs another meetup called the Data Engineering Meetup. Highly recommend it. I've actually been sending links to recordings from that meetup to some colleagues of mine, simply because they tend to be very relevant. So last meetup they did was about feature store databases. So kind of an interesting machine learning topic there, and they went through those. And yeah, they are held, I think, the second Thursday or the first
third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday. Okay, it's always something. We try to stick to the first Wednesday when we can. The only exception is usually in July and sometimes in January for 4th of July and New Year's. So we have some websites. Feel free to click them, laugh at them because they haven't been updated forever, and make a pull request at github.com/slcpython. Sponsors include Pythonistas like you, so thank you for your continued support. Past expenses and sponsorship can be found at slcpython/money. That should be up to date finally. Feel free to send me a message on Meetup or Twitter, and we'll take it from there if you want to sponsor. And we're tax deductible under the Utah Python charter, so that's cool. This was for April, so let's think of a May thing. Let's do favorite flower, because it's May and it's time for May flowers. So this is kind of how we like to do intros: is your name, occupation, so what you're doing, and let's say favorite flower. So I'll start just as an example. I'm Ferris. I'm a senior backend janitor, but now apparently I'm the manager of senior backend janitors, so that's kind of cool. And I work at Invitae, which is a genetics company, and they're pretty fun. And I have lots to say about them, but I won't because Dylan knows we'll be here forever. My favorite flower, there's so many. I like jasmine. That's my favorite. So the other thing, if you are new and you want to introduce yourself, feel free to use the raise hand feature, and that's a reaction, and I will see it as a little indication on the participants menu, so then I can call on you and you can introduce yourself. Any new members want to go ahead and introduce themselves? Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Nobody wants to introduce themselves? That's fine.
I guess it's been, this is my first meeting, but it's been a hot minute. But yeah, my name's Leif, and I am currently seeking out employment. And my favorite flower, I think, would be, I had a succulent that bloomed, and it was kind of cool. I don't know the name of it, but I would say it would be that.
I totally hear you though. When those succulents finally bloom, it's so cool, right? That long stem, and it's just go, go, go.
Yep. And then it's not as soft as a normal one. It's this hard flower. It's weird. That's cool.
Gabby, welcome to the group. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Okay. I don't use Zoom much, so am I on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Gabby Mismash. My pronouns are they and she. I am a freelance artist and game developer. Right now I'm working on an indie game, and I'm not as much of a flower person. I've got a lot of other plants, but no real flowers. But if I had to pick a favorite flower, probably violets.
It's a good standard. I like it.
Jasmines are also pretty good. I'm drinking jasmine tea right now.
Awesome. And then Gabby's joining us today. They'll be talking about some of the work that they do in Blender, specifically some of the art that they've been working on, some really cool stuff, and just kind of a history of possibly one of the most famous pieces of Python software on the desktop. So figure we could get some perspective there, just a short little thing before Matt's talk. And then I was going to show a quick demo of how to use Python in Blender. And that shouldn't take more than like 3 or 4 minutes. So welcome to the group, Gabby. Anybody else who's new?
Hi, Paris. This is Angelo. This is the first time I've been here for a long while. I don't know if you can pick me up.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I work as a manual tester essentially at Hill. I've been there for about 3 years. And we develop our small group. Well, there's about 80 of us. In my group, there's 4 of us. Our group develops pretty unique desktop applications. Recently, there was a big push to try to get some people enrolled in a 4-day Firehose Python class. I said, yeah, that'll probably pin me up against the wall. So I've got some computer science background, so I'm inching my way towards picking up the technology, and I'm grateful that the group is available. So I'll just sit back and listen and go from there. Thanks.
Well, we got to know your favorite flower first.
Oh, well, they were mentioned here earlier. Actually, I like those aromatics, like the stalks. Is that what they call them? Peppermint stalks or something like that? Yeah, that's the aromatics.
Good choice. Well, welcome again, Angelo. I know we've seen you around, but it's always good to reintroduce yourself. And you're in the right spot. We'll talk about all kinds of Python stuff, synchronously during this Zoom. But if you want to continue that education, I gotta say, y'all have made one of the best Slacks I've seen for a while. Like, our community is really, really nice on Slack, and yeah, so keep it up, everybody. Yeah, anybody else who's new wants to introduce themselves?
Hey, I'm Brian Colden. I'm a systems architect for AdStream North America. I'm calling in from Dallas. And my favorite flower is probably all-purpose.
All-purpose flower? Ah, nice. With the O-U-R, nice.
Yeah.
Not going to stick to the bread flour, just that all-purpose stuff. Love it.
I like your icon, by the way, Brian.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it's very clever. I love it. Anybody else?
I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I've come once or twice before, but not very often. I'm Rob Meekum. Worked with Ferris a while ago now. Yeah, I'm a back-end engineer, and I guess my favorite flower would be the tulip. I spent some time in the Netherlands, so gotta go with tulip.
You got to. Rob, where'd you land, by the way?
It's a company called Density. It's pretty cool, and I've put myself on the agenda for we're hiring because we're looking for more engineers.
Excellent. Excellent. And Rob is a great person to work with, just FYI. Very sagacious fellow.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm
Thank
not
you.
new, but I really.
Hey, Louis, were you talking?
I thought I wasn't sure. You guys really need to check out a Grand Duke jasmine. They are absolutely gorgeous. They are just a real wonderful flower. I think, Travis, how many times have we brought them back from Arizona?
Many times. Louis is my dad, by the way. So, yeah. All right, let's keep going here. Let's start with who's hiring. Okay, well, we're in Q2, so I'm going to adjust this. Q2 is a great time to get hired. Not as much of a pro tip, but I mean, everything's up in the air right now. I gotta say, it's one of the weirdest markets ever. I bet Kate could totally like confirm that, but it's not, none of the rules make sense anymore. And I think that's actually an excellent opportunity for people who are looking to dive into their first comp sci career. This is probably one of the best times to do it. So yeah, so who's hiring? Python Jobs HQ. I will also say that I linked this because PyCon used to have a job fair, and they still, this year, they will have a job fair. So if you are attending PyCon, definitely check that out. Tech Systems, always great connect. Kate is right here. You can reach out to her. She's an excellent recruiter. She's never messaged me about a PHP job. So that's pretty much, that's like my par level, but Kate really goes beyond. She made sure, whenever we're talking about positions, I never felt pressured by Tech Systems or Kate about like taking something that maybe I'm not sure of and outside the comfort zone. Just great people to work with. Yeah, do you have more to say about Tech Systems, Kate? Oh, also they've sponsored us quite a bit, so FYI.
Yeah, things are definitely getting great too. So I'm hoping maybe by the next one I can bring you guys another load of like the Raspberry Pis or whatever we want to do there. But yeah, like you were saying, the industry is kind of insane right now. I don't know that I've ever seen this much business. Literally just kind of running ragged, trying to help people, trying to fill things, trying to make stuff happen. I mean, if you're looking for a job, man, right now is the time. There is just so much out there. So it's awesome. Yeah, I know I posted a couple of the Python roles that I've had in the group, but and then of course there's like the national stuff too, and yeah, it's a really, really interesting time in the industry for sure.
Definitely. And on the note of like prizes and stuff, we are thinking, we're chatting about doing something in person outside and not during like the first Wednesday of the month, but kind of just a informal, let's do something outside, probably closer to July, August. So just so our members know, this is stuff that we're talking about. I love the Zoom chats because I got somebody like Brian with a kick butt logo, and he's from Dallas and he's joining us right here. Like that part, I don't want to lose out on. But at the same time, part of the reason I started this group was to get myself out of the house and meeting other people who are with shared interests. So I'm hoping we can get back to that. And
what about doing like a quarterly Ferris, like maybe like once a quarter it's in person and then the other ones are online?
Yeah, and we'll figure it out. We'll that's a good idea, but we'll figure it out right now.
Maybe a
yeah.
blended. We have technology, we can make them virtual sort of all the time, and just like, but also have a in-person component.
But what I'm talking about for the record right now is kind of more of a let's release some steam. And it's been a minute since I saw everybody, and I miss y'all. And I know that Dylan and I have been like vaccinated and immunized for a while, and I know a lot of you have been too. So kudos, many happy dances for that. But yeah, lots of hearts for that. And I'm glad to see you all on the other side of this one. And yeah, like pretty much the meetup made it at least. I'm hoping individuals get to make it too. So can't wait to see you all in person. Yeah, let's keep talking about jobs though before I get all teary-eyed. Invitae is hiring. Genomic testing is what Invitae does for medical genetic tests. If you are the right candidate, the specific position would be on my team and I would be your manager. So that's kind of fun. This is like the first time in the history of the meetup, other than when I was at Zaniac, that I get to say this. So that's kind of cool. Awesome.
Other than that job I worked at for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Other than that one.
Other than that one, where we started the meetup in the first place. But but it's been a while.
It was a lifetime ago.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
This last year has felt like 10. So
yeah.
But yeah, we're hiring. If you're interested in bettering like human health through genetic testing. Let me show you how you can use Django for that, and contact me for more details. We're looking for somebody senior. Yeah. Recursion. Is Isla here or anybody representing Recursion? Going once?
No, but she's been saying that they've been on a hiring spree for a bit now. They're a cool place to work.
Yeah, I'll leave the
Definitely
link up
check
then.
them out. Yeah.
Log DNA. Somebody representing them. I left this from the last meetup, but I will remove it if that person's not, if nobody can speak to this job. Okay. And then Rob, do you want to tell us all about Density?
Yeah, so Density is a kind of a mid to late stage startup, I would say. The whole idea is we make sensors that count people. And, you know,
clever name,
yeah, exactly. And with companies gearing up to get ready to get back to in-person work, and then a lot of companies are staying flexible. You can come in if you want to, you can stay remote if you want to. So we're seeing a huge amount of interest in our sensors, our line of sensors. And I will just say, unlike a lot of our competitors, we don't use cameras. We just use these sort of radar sensors that count people very anonymously. So we don't even gather any personally identifiable information, much less try to keep it secure. So we're privacy focused. We've got a new product coming online called our open area sensor that I'm working on. So yeah, if you want to join us, we've got a lot of positions both for backend where our sensors come and talk to our servers. That's all Python based. We've got some embedded side stuff if you want to work on device side. The website is density.io if you want to check out the job listing, and let me know if you're interested.
Excellent.
Hi, can you elaborate a little bit more about the radar sensor? Because I'm a radar signal processing expert and I'm interested in what you guys are doing.
Oh yeah, it's not my area of expertise. I'm more consuming the data that comes off the sensor. But yeah, as I understand it, it's a millimeter wave sensor.
Is that for automotive radar?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is that for autonomous vehicle?
I feel like that's a term there that I'm not
so
familiar
with.
Autonomous vehicles use LiDAR now, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, it's not for vehicles, it's for like office space, or most of our customers are like commercial real estate businesses. They just want to see how many people are in their spaces, what their utilization is.
Oh, okay.
You should
so
call
is there
up
any information I can get about that?
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no worries.
You had a question.
Sounds like a good.
Yeah. Is there any information I can get? Get more additional information.
Yeah, someone just posted the website. It's density.io. If you go down to the bottom there's the jobs section there. I know for sure we're hiring a. There's the sensors. We're hiring a Python engineer right now. I'm not 100% sure if we have embedded positions open, but if not now, it'll probably be soon because we're.
No, I'm not looking for a job. I'm just trying to understand more information.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Sure,
yeah. Shanker and Rob, you should definitely sync up on our Slack, or at the end of this, we'll have a networking time. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. Looks like Verdigris is still hiring, Dylan.
Yeah.
So
I want to just throw out there, Rob. You should check out Team as maybe a strategic partner, because when I was doing data science at Team, one of the problems we had that we needed solving was how do we sense people.
Remember that time that WeWork bought that whole company just to figure out how to sense people?
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah, I'm a little curious where it ended up with the whole WeWork thing.
We
got battle stories.
Yeah, we have lots, and we will put them at the tail end, or we'll be here all night. But Yeah, we were owned for 11 months by WeWork and then divested. That's the
We
TLDR.
do energy monitoring, sub-metering, as well as smart building automation. And we're hiring for a senior data engineer. So if you want to come work with some energy data, building management system data, with a pretty modern data stack using Kubernetes and AWS, and we have edge computers. So there's some fun problems to work on. And if that describes you, there's the link. Also message me in the Slack, the Utah Python Slack, and I'll make sure you get into the pipeline.
Awesome. Let's keep going. Anybody know of other places hiring? Going once, going twice. All right. And if you hear about stuff, we have a jobs channel on Slack. Just hit up one of us before you make any postings, and we'll just vet it before it goes out. Who's looking? So if you are looking for a gig, now's your chance to market yourself to the group and let us know, why would somebody hire somebody as awesome as you? So if there's anybody who's looking, feel free to paste your details and step up and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Leif once again. I'm looking for a job. Just finished a software development boot camp. I have done some volunteering for a nonprofit focused on the full stack portion, and I have been programming in Python as well as Node.js, Express, Flask, some Bootstrap libraries, other libraries and frameworks. But yeah, seeking out an entry-level position, and would love to hear if anyone knows of anything.
Excellent. Thanks, Leif. And I put a link. Feel free to put your details in there, and people will be able to get a hold of you.
Great, thanks.
And my details are already there, so I put it there last time. So I'm a freelance consultant at the moment. I do data engineering for the most part, ELT, ETL pipelines, managing cloud infrastructure. I was a database administrator for a couple of years. I have some experience doing data analysis, dashboards, and that sort of thing. I did that for a couple healthcare companies. So I am looking for contracts, but if something comes up that's not a contract, that is cool too. So my information's there, and it looks like I'll be reaching out to some of these other people too that have just posted some really cool opportunities. So
sure.
Oh, and I'm Matt Kingsbury, by the way. I don't think I
Matt's
mentioned
our
that.
speaker tonight, so that's your other reason to hire him for sure. He's a Swiss Army knife and a veritable Pythonista for sure.
We have a very high bar for speakers, and so he's a great hire.
I mean, not really. I mean, y'all let me speak sometimes, so it's not that high.
I think I have the most. I have. You missed the opportunity to take a dig at me there, Ferris. Like, we let you speak.
I don't dig on other people. I like digging on myself. It's funnier.
That's true. I love your talks, Ferris.
Speak.
Thanks.
Right?
Hello?
Yeah. I was just saying that up north, we haven't had any meetings in a while, and we would appreciate just your support in being able to get a speaker from outside.
Yeah, well, we'll circle around to that maybe offline.
Okay. If anybody wants to speak out of this group, we are up in Logan, and we will buy you dinner.
Awesome. Excellent. Let's move on. Unless there's other people who are looking, feel free to raise your hand in the participants. Raise your hand as a reaction, and we see it in the participants view. Gabby.
Yeah. So I'm not really doing a lot of stuff specifically in software development, but I'm a freelance artist. If you know anybody who needs, anybody who needs graphic design, 3D modeling, I do have some experience with Python, so, but that's not like my expertise at all. But yeah, if you know any opportunities in that sort of broad thing, I'll show off some of my other work later. But
hey, I'm really looking forward to showing things off on your behalf, I have to say, because you've done some really cool stuff. I mean, I don't know if people saw the Blender channel that we started in the last couple of weeks, but Gabby posted some of their stuff in there. And oh my goodness, it's cool. It's like a different take. It's true art. So really excited to have you speak.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else who's looking? Going once, going twice. All right. Let's move on. Community news. I think we're up to Python 3.10 pre-release, or am I crazy? Let me see. That's what I like to check. Yeah, so here we nope. Yes, 3.10 B1. Boop. Yay, the beta preview of Python 3.10 is out.
So type aliases. Let's see what features look interesting. Union of types. A lot more typing.
Yeah. This sounds like it'll be really useful for some of the stuff I've been doing.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a new pattern matching thing, so you don't have to do endless if, else if.
If you're using pattern matching for case statements, Rob, I am going to remove your. I'm just going to remove this. Never mind. Nobody work at density. No, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, the pattern matching that we're joking about right now, it does let you do case statements, but they're for pattern matching. Dang it, not for actual conditionals.
Ferris doesn't take digs at people though, so.
maybe just former coworkers, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Python 3.10 is looking sweet. I recommend if anybody wants to try something advanced, go through some of these PEPs and try to understand them back to front. And one word of advice, if you're trying to mess with different Python environments, Docker is your friend. Just run it on an image, and that way you don't have to worry about all the extra what have you, and you can and then you might make a PR into the Python Docker and say, hey, like you screwed this thing up, let me help you. So boom. Yeah, other than that, that's the fun news coming up with Python. What other community news? There's this PyCon thing, I think, next week. So that's cool. Who's going to PyCon? Feel free to raise your hand. I'm going. It's online. It'll be fun. Highly recommend. I like the format. They figured out a way around the how do you say, the hallway track, as it were. So having like an informal space between spaces to interact with other people and chat. And it looks like what they have going on, it's going to be pretty legit. They will also have a job fair, and they're also doing a PyLadies auction, which will be 5 days, and then it'll be a live finale. So that's kind of cool. So a lot of that. And then PyCon 2022. Does everybody know where PyCon 2022 is going to be? Right here, baby. Right in Salt Lake City. Yeah, we got it. We got it for the next couple of years. So that's pretty sweet. I am so excited. I can't even put it in words. So what I'm kind of hoping for this group is that we're exemplary enough to get a mention or to get a few. It'll be fun. The PyCon meetups are always a lot of fun. I got to go to the Montreal meetup when PyCon was held in Montreal, and that was really cool to like go to a meetup in a different city, and it's how did they do things and what can I bring over here, and I can't wait. Very excited for PyCon 2022 and this one next week. It's going to be sweet. Yeah, any other community news? Any hot happenings? No, pretty slow in the tech world. All right, I like slow. Like we could use more slow this year. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's look at these talks. Gabby, are you ready to demo your awesome presentation on Blender?
Yes. Can y'all see and hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Oh, 1 second. Let's see. Oh my gosh.
I think everybody here empathizes with like Zoom button messiness, so don't worry.
Yeah. I've avoided Zoom as much as possible during the pandemic somehow, and so apologies if there's any technical issues. Just let me know.
You lucky. Just kidding. It's fine.
Yeah. I did have to use it for a gig, but that's it. Okay, so let's see. Share screen. Okay. 1 second. Oh. Okay. Alrighty.
Is this your theme song?
Yes, definitely. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just getting it all set up. Okay. Can y'all see this?
Excellent. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. So I haven't given a talk in a while, so apologies if there's any issues. But yeah, so again, my name is Gabby Mismash. My pronouns are she and they. I'm a glitch artist, musician, graphic designer, game developer, and most relevantly, a 3D artist. I started doing 3D art about 7 years ago for the purpose of making games, and that's still my focus. But since then, I've kind of branched out into doing like pre-rendered stuff, both like for my own projects and for clients. So yeah, if anyone's not familiar with it, this is Blender. It's a really powerful 3D toolkit. It's open source. You can use it to model, rig, animate, simulate, render, pretty much anything. Yeah, so just a quick history of Blender. So Blender was initially written by this guy, Ton Roosendaal. He founded the 3D animation studio Neo Geo in the Netherlands in 1988. He was responsible for software development, and then in 1994, he was going into the process of bringing all their kind of in-house tools together, and that's what eventually became Blender. So this right here is the first version of Blender. It was released in 1988. It's freeware for SGI workstations. It's basically kind of always intended to be free. That seems to be his desire. And so they dissolved Neo Geo to then focus on Blender in 1988 and started Nan, not a number, which was the new company. They focused on the development of Blender. For a little while, it was a shareware model where new features were kind of behind a paywall, but it went back to freeware shortly after. That wasn't sustainable, and Nan went bankrupt. And so after that is when Ton founded the Blender Foundation, raised some funding to buy the source code back from the investors of Nan, and then released Blender as open source software under the GNU General Public License. So it's been that way ever since. Yeah, and then the Blender Foundation, since then, they've put a lot of work into Blender. It's obviously still open source, and lots of people outside of the Blender Foundation contribute, but they're the core team. They've also done a lot of like short films that are open source, basically. So all the assets for the short films are available as kind of a way to like showcase Blender and also push it forward internally and have that kind of tighter integration. And so yeah, that leads us up to now. I would say Blender kind of really came into what it's known as today with the release of Blender 2.8 in 2019. So this is when they kind of redid the user interface, brought it more in line with a lot of other kind of standard 3D software design decisions. Before then, it had the problem with a lot of open source software of having an abominable, like just terrible interface. And it's much better now. They also added the grease pencil tool, which is this right here. It's kind of a 2D animation toolkit within Blender. And so it allows for really tight integration of like 3D environments with 2D characters and kind of integrating those two workflows together. And there's already been some professional projects released using that tool. So yeah, I'd say there's no better time to get into Blender than now. If you've ever tried to get into Blender in the past, you've probably seen a chart like this. 3D software is very complicated. As someone who uses like a bunch of different creative toolkits, like 3D software is probably the most complicated type. There's just so many different variables and tools. It's very intimidating at first. But like any other like kind of professional piece of software, if you, kind of the main approach is, get your foot in the door, make something simple, branch out from there as you decide to make more things. Yeah, so let's see. Let me just see if I had any other notes, sorry. But yeah. And again, there's tons of community resources because it's an open source community-driven project. And so here's what I would kind of consider to be Blender's main competitors. You have 3ds Max and Maya, which are both owned by Autodesk, and Cinema 4D. 3ds or like 3ds Max and Maya, they both all of these are basically on the yearly subscription model that's taken over. Cinema 4D still does have a perpetual license. 3ds Max was kind of, I would say, the early industry standard, but it's kind of become deprecated. I wouldn't recommend anyone pick it up now unless you need it for a specific thing. Autodesk focus seems to be on Maya. Cinema 4D is, their focus is on like really, really photorealistic stuff. Cinema 4D you mostly see used in like special effects for film productions. But yeah, all of these are pretty like not niche, but they are more focused on a specific thing. On top of being free, another advantage of Blender is it's an all-in-one kind of toolkit. So, if I'm trying to do like a physics simulation, all these, they have like all of these other pieces of software, they have that sort of stuff built in. But if you really want like the good stuff, you're going to have to use something like Trapcode Particular. Blender has that all tightly integrated. And so there's less switching between applications. So, if you are branching into trying other things in 3D, Blender's really useful in that way. Yeah, let me just see if there was anything else I wanted to touch upon. Yeah, I feel like that's it. This is some of the stuff I've done in Blender. So like the chess kit I modeled, kind of old style computer I'm working on for a music project of mine. This was a like space station commission for a tabletop art, like a cyberpunk tabletop RPG. This was like a piece of artist reference. And then this is a game I've worked on. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd like to open that up.
Thanks, Gabby. I have a question. How, like, if somebody learns how to use Blender like this, is there job opportunities? What sort of jobs do people look for if like this is their skill set? Is there more skills that you need if you need to if you wanted to get a job doing this full time?
Doing this kind of just 3D modeling, or like what specifically? Because
yeah, maybe 3D modeling. I don't like what. Maybe it is, kind of what job titles use the software primarily. Are there jobs that use only the software if you were good at it?
Yeah, working at a modeling, again, most of my experience is in games. So I know a lot of game studios have really started heavily adopting Blender. Actually, I just learned while researching this talk that Ubisoft has thrown out some of their in-house 3D tools and is switching completely to Blender. Oh. Yeah, for like a lot of their 3D tools. So it's becoming the industry standard in a lot of ways. I would say it's like feature-wise about on par with everything else out there, if not exceeding. So yeah, I would say, like 3D modeling, a lot of rendering. So doing like architectural renders, you can basically do that in any piece of 3D software, but Blender's free. Yeah, I would say those are the two that come to mind off the top of my head. But yeah, and then what was the rest of the question? Sorry.
I think that was it. So like if you were if you're a 3D, you could be hired essentially as a 3D modeler to build pieces for like a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
freelance too, from what I understand.
Yeah,
like add-ons to games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mostly do. Sorry, something in my throat. I mostly do that stuff freelance. So.
How do you find out about the opportunities freelance? Is somebody you knew, or
just through social media, just connections.
Okay.
Like any industry.
You're like, hey, you're working on a game. If you need any game design, any sort of work, I'd be willing to try. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just putting mostly, and during the pandemic, it's mostly just been putting my stuff out on Twitter. or
Yeah,
joining other communities.
that's cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, I also kind of didn't touch upon the Python stuff as much. So I just realized, sorry. So Blender, they've started integrating Python into Blender back in 2000. Since then, I'm pretty sure Blender is mostly done in Python. And Blender, because it's open source, there's a lot of really powerful tools for add-ons. It's got a really powerful API. I've messed around a little bit with that. I didn't really have anything that I felt comfortable showing off, but because I mostly do procedural stuff, like procedural models in game engines. But yeah, Python and Blender are super integrated. It's very powerful. And yeah, Ferris is going to show off some of that.
Can the output of Blender be used for 3D printing at all? Or?
Oh yeah, this chess set right here is a chess set I'm going to 3D print and then cast. So.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah, it's anything, any 3D thing you want to do, Blender can do basically at this point.
Oh, hey.
Sorry, go on with your question.
Sure. I don't know if it's more of a question or not, but I've seen a lot of people using Blender in the last few months to make maps of like 3D maps with the shadows, shaded relief, just sort of what I do. But I was wondering how easy it is to incorporate that kind of like grid raster cell data.
I can actually answer that, Justin, if you want. If that's okay, Gabby.
Are you talking about height maps?
Sort of like that. Digital elevation models.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the first things I started doing when I started learning 3D stuff. That was one of the first things I learned how to do. So I'd say it's pretty easy. Sorry, Ferris, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there is actually an add-in, and I'll probably have to demo it because the demo I'm trying to do, the add-on just started failing, and now everything looks like crap. Like it's gonna. Let me show everybody what's going on. But I'm gonna stop your sharing, Gabby.
Okay, that's fine. Oh yeah. Oh, real quick, actually. Here's some contact info. I'll put that in the document. But yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me, and this is just kind of the Python side of things, is what I was trying to show, and now I'm annoyed. So can everybody see this screen? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So usually when animation knows when this add-on is working, this would be like the best Python demo ever, and I can't wait to show it maybe at the next meetup, because the last meetup, this is exactly what happened. But usually this is how you will set up your initial environment, and right now it's saying all these undefined socket types and what have you. Basically, you're doing a bunch of functional programming, and you'll pass parameters with lines for this part. And I really wish this was showing, and it's not even running actually. So this was gonna be my procedural demo, and I actually wanted to do the drawing today with this, but I just don't think it's happening today. Sorry, y'all. But essentially, what you can do is you'll kind of wire everything up, and then you can just feed in any Python data. I'll link to the video that I used to make this, and it's really cool. That video author also used a Python API to track like Bitcoin prices, and you can do stuff like, the sharper the curve, the more red it is, right? So those kinds of procedures could be encapsulated using a bit of Python code or a bit of these wrap-ins. I'm gonna see if I can do, I think I have this. So Justin, this one's for you. This is something called the GIS plugin, and I think it's a built-in. You just have to hit the check mark. You don't have to like go down, download a zip file. It's just hit a check mark in the plugins, which is like somewhere in preferences. But anyway, this one's pretty cool. You just tell it, I want a base map, and hopefully this works. Come on, buddy. Or not, of course. Why do all my demos fail lately? Okay, sorry. Let me try this one more time. It's trying to do something. I can see it on the upper left. It's like caching something, but pretty much, I really wanted to show this. And I can't even click now. Okay, my Blender's freaking out. That's all right. Basically, you'll pick a map, you'll give it heights, and you'll say what heights you want the buildings to be at, and it'll fill all that in. And what's really neat about it, I was working on, I want to do kind of a data visualization project showing how much water reservoirs in Utah have. So I was going to kind of like zoom in on Big Cottonwood Canyon and then move the camera to like Little Cottonwood and just kind of show like, this is going to take months, but in my mind, it would be, you know, you move the map and then the map stops and the water in it will shake. Blender can simulate a lot of the fluid dynamics and stuff. And it's really powerful. And I will have a better demo later, but until then, I'm going to go ahead and link it in the Blender channel and I'll share it over to our main channel and I'll let Matt take it from here.
Oh, I'll just say the main example I've seen is people taking really old government issued maps of national parks or other touristy areas and adding some like really nice shading relief to it where the shadows spill out over the edge of the map. It's a pretty cool effect, and but it's getting a little overused maybe, but it's the main thing I've seen Blender used for. So it's cool to see it here. I'll definitely be reinstalling it.
I will say for people who are like, if you just want to try something creative, I mean, just think of the first time you picked up Photoshop or something. Maybe that's, I'm dating myself, but I remember the first time I looked at Photoshop and it was like, oh, I could like use this clone tool and make it look like I have a beard, which was great for an 11-year-old something, you know, in high school who really wanted a beard. But yeah, I don't know why this is this. I was gonna pull up. Yeah, I'll go ahead and link those videos and check them out. I think what's really cool is that this kind of expression, you'll find you can like do stuff, you'll have an idea and you can actually kind of start to visualize, oh, this is how I do it in Blender. And then 10 hours later, you'll realize I don't know what I'm doing in Blender, but it's still fun. So
yeah, I would say as someone who's like technically minded and creative, 3D modeling is some of the most satisfying stuff for me to do. And, you know, especially as I've gotten more into doing procedural stuff lately, it's a ton of fun. I would say if it's something that interests you, absolutely give it a shot.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks for backing me up there, Gabby. All right, Matt, do you want to take it away? Show us how to get our websites on the internet.
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Oh, let's see here. Can everybody see? Oh, doggone it. Where's full screen? There we go. Does that look like it's alive to you?
It's alive and red.
I got to give credit to Dylan for coming up with that. That is 100% his title, and I'm very happy with that. So thank you, Dylan.
You're welcome. Thanks for giving the inspiration for the idea and making the rest of the talk.
Yeah. So basically, what precipitated all this? So actually, even a little more backstory than what I indicated. I actually majored. My second bachelor's degree was in information systems, and that was in all web development. Unfortunately, in C#. And my brother actually got the same degree as I did, and I graduated a semester after him, and I was talking to him after. I'm like, you know what? It just occurred to me, we spent like 3 semesters learning how to make websites, and I have no idea how to actually like put it on the internet. And since then, I've dabbled a little bit with front end stuff, and a lot of times the books or tutorials that you do, they take you through, here's how to build a blog or something like that, and then they get to the end and they're like, yeah, great, if you hit Shift 10, you can run it on your machine. The end. You're like, well, oh, wait, hold up. I thought I was supposed to like put this somewhere. And so I thought I'd give a talk on how to put it somewhere. So a little bit about my background. This will explain why I haven't done much with front end stuff, because I've been exclusively back end for the last couple of years. So as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I'm a freelance consultant now. I do all sorts of fun data stuff. I maintain people's architecture and do database administration. I do the data janitor thing for all sorts of clients. So it's a lot of fun. Before that, actually, what brought me out to Utah was I was a database architect for the University of Utah School of Medicine. Made sure we had some clean data for our research. Said I was an analyst before that. And then before that, I was a database administrator. So I have lots of experience getting stuff deployed and that sort of thing, but I'd never actually done the whole, hey, let's take a website and make it work. So I decided I'll go ahead and make it work. So before I talk about actually how to deploy it, though, let me demonstrate some of the options that you have to actually deploy something. So there's actually 3 ways to go about doing this, but I'm really only going to touch on 2 of them. The third way I'll just mention briefly is self-hosting it yourself. So that's where you like handle all of your own hardware. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you. Raspberry Pis are $35, which still amazes me that they can continue at that price point. But I know people who put web servers on their Raspberry Pis and open up their network to the internet. That's not for me. If for no other reason than I now have my home network exposed to the open internet, which is potentially not a good thing. So you can do it, but in 2021, 2021. So at any rate, so in 2021, there's hardly any reason to do it though, because there's so many good options out there. So the other 2 options that you realistically have are called infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. With infrastructure as a service, that's where you go to Amazon Web Services, you go to Microsoft, Google, we're going to do DigitalOcean today. And you say, hey, I want a virtual machine in the cloud. And they say, great, here are your keys. And as long as you don't do anything stupid in Parler, then you're good to go. But you have to control it yourself. So you're responsible for security patches. You're responsible for maintaining your operating system, all that stuff. The other option is to use a platform as a service. What we're going to talk about today is an app as a service. And so that's where you put code somewhere and then some other company just takes care of all of the other stuff for you. And all you have to worry about is making sure that you have running workable, application code. There's other types of platform as a service. You can get database as a service. So that's where if you don't want to learn how to be your own database administrator, great. Amazon is happy to take your money and be your database administrator. One of the more common ones that is actually really hard to do on your own is buckets. So that is where you have, or a content delivery network. That's where you can put up specific files into the cloud, and Amazon's service for this is called S3. Everybody has S3 compatible storage. And like I said, that's hard to emulate because it's like you literally pay just for the amount of space that you use. So those are the 2 that you'd realistically want to use in 2021, infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. So with infrastructure as a service, this is where you're controlling everything yourself. So if you wanted to set up a website, there's 2 common ways you do that if you're using your own infrastructure. One is you just put everything on the same virtual machine. That has advantages, and if you're sort of a small scale web app, that's usually fine. I run a site called trombonechat.com, which my first degree was actually music education, so I'm big into the trombone stuff. But I'm actually the administrator for that site, and so this is what we do. We just have a single server, costs a couple bucks a month to keep up, and we have the web app running on it. In this case, we have Apache running on it, and what I have displayed here is Nginx. So you have to maintain the operating system, you have to maintain the web server, you have to maintain the code, and you have to maintain the database. But having it all in the same place means you don't have to worry about much in the way of networking. The other way you can host a website with infrastructure is by having one server to separate all of the components. And I'm saying server, and it doesn't have to be a server. You can also use other things to maintain it inside. But for the sake of simplicity, I won't go too much into like Docker containers or anything like that. But the general idea here is that you would have one thing that you're managing, and it's controlling the various aspects of your website. So in this example on the bottom, you might have a web server that has your code and it has a web server on it, and that's what people interface with. But then if there are a ton of people accessing your website and you find that you have degraded performance or something like that, what you'll commonly do is have multiple servers take care of the database. And that way, if one person accesses your site, they might go to database A, but then person B might go to a database B. And that way you don't have one server just handling all of that traffic. Now, platform as a service, you generally don't have to deal with those types of things. You obviously still have to deal with, if you have a lot of traffic, how to have that work in the back end. But in this case, let's say that you had just a static website. that you didn't need a database for. Well, all you really need to worry about then is your code. And that's what the top one is here. It's just your Django application or your static HTML sites or something like that. You just say, hey, app as a service, I want you to display this code. And it says, I will happily take your money and display your code. There are more complicated versions of this. And so if you are in a situation where you have a database or something like that, again, Amazon is happy to take your money and be your database administrator. You'll basically say, I want a database. And then they say, great, you can connect to it this way. And then you give that connection information to your web application and it interacts. But basically, you're not taking care of anything other than making sure that your code is running. And that's basically it. And there's a third model that sort of combines these. And so this is useful if you have a certain strength. Like, for example, I was a database administrator, so I'm typically going to manage my own databases just because I can save money that way and I'm good at it. But if I had started out in the front end side of things and I didn't really care to learn, how to maintain load balancing and backups and all that sort of stuff, what I would do is I might just say, well, I'm just going to have, DigitalOcean handle my databases for me. And I'll just focus on the things that I like doing. And that's going to be, web service or something like that. And so that's a hybrid model that combines some of both of these. So with infrastructure as a service, there are some pros to this, notably that you control everything other than, of course, the hardware. And that helps you avoid vendor lock-in. So you're not necessarily beholden to a single way of doing things, and you don't get too invested in, the Amazon infrastructure or something like that. If for some reason your provider decides to take your site down or they go to business or something like that, you just take your backups and you move somewhere else. It's also less expensive from a compute expense or from a compute perspective. So that means that for every hour that you run something in the cloud, that means that you're going to incur, X number of dollars per hour. Usually if you're managing your own operating system, that sort of thing, you're going to pay less for that. But on the other hand, the cons to infrastructure as a service is actually it can be more expensive if you actually consider the expense of your time, or if you're a company and you have to pay someone to manage this for you. So whether or not it actually ends up being cheaper to maintain your own stuff, it really depends on the context. But then with platform as a service, the pros are that of course you have almost all of the difficulty abstracted away. You can literally just be a Python programmer and not need to worry about anything else. And as long as your code compiles, you put it up there and everything else gets taken care of under the covers. Sometimes companies like this offer service level agreements too. So that means if you have an SLA, they might guarantee say 99.999999 or 6/9 of guarantee, which equates to something like 6 minutes of downtime per year. If you can manage yourself to only have six minutes of downtime per year, that's pretty good. But some sites, if you have platform as a service, you don't have to. You're not the one who's taking that 3 a.m. call necessarily. The cons, though, is that it can be more expensive. But like I said, with the last one, this is just going to depend on the context, whether or not it actually is more expensive for you or not. It's also less flexible. Usually with platform as a service, you can't just put everything, like I showed a couple slides ago, where you have everything in one box. You can't really do that with platform as a service. You have to buy all of the individual parts of the platform. So that all adds up. Whereas with, like I said, with Trombone Chat, it's a couple bucks a month. We put the server on there, we put the database on there, and then everything's all at the same time. And there's only, a couple hundred of us. So, and it's in PHP, but we get by. And then with a hybrid model, you just kind of get the benefits of both, but the cons of both. But like I said, if you are specializing in just front end stuff and you don't really care to learn about the database, or you don't have time to become your own database administrator, you can get the pros of having a platform as a service of the things that you're not good at, while maintaining some of that control for the stuff that you are specializing in. So with all that said, we're going to go ahead and deploy an actual application. I will not be doing it live. I have taken pictures of everything because live coding is terrifying. And also, when I went to do this, literally DigitalOcean had their 6 minutes of downtime. So that would have been terrible. So what I did, I actually a couple weeks ago, I made a website for myself in Django, and I open sourced that. And the link for that is in, I think did we put that in the Etherpad? If not, we can put it in there.
It's not. I don't think it's in there yet, but I'll link it right now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and if you need the link to that, it's actually here. I can copy and paste it. So if anybody else wants to have a copy of my open sourced basic, resume page, you are welcome to it. What I did, I'll actually go to it right now and show that off real quick. So that is the beautiful 24-year-old picture of myself. Put on some pounds since then. Yeah, so anyway, this is what the website looks like. You can click on services, and then you can basically say, here's my music resume, here's my business and technology resume. So what I did when I open sourced it is I filled all of the text in with Latin placeholder, and I put a placeholder person there. So this is what you'll get if you download this. And that way you can just go ahead and replace all the text with whatever you want if for some reason you choose to use it. So we're going to be deploying this with Platform as a Service. And the reason that I went with that is that in this particular use case, it's actually about the same cost as using infrastructure as a service, unless you already had something built. There's also no maintenance. So it's just going to stay up as long as I keep paying DigitalOcean. And it's really, really, really easy to deploy. Eventually, I plan on making this a blog myself. And so if I make any changes to it, as soon as I upload it to the Git repository, it actually gets rebuilt. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So if you're going to follow along, you would need there are some prerequisites that you need to do to get this up and running. The first is you'll need a domain name. Fortunately, this is really easy now. There's a million places you can get domain names. The ones that I typically go to are either Google or Gandhi. Like I said, there's others out there that, like, you shouldn't really spend more than $15 a month on them or a year on them. Domains are not expensive. If you go for something like super specialized, you might have to, but you can get a .com with like your name for not much money. With both of those services, you get an email address too. So if you're, like I am, Matt at mattkingsbury.com, you can just do that. You don't have to worry about buying some third-party email stuff. You'll also need a DigitalOcean account, although in this particular case, what DigitalOcean did for their app platform is they literally forked Heroku, which is one of the more common app platforms for this type of thing. So you could also do this on another app platform. Pretty much all the major cloud providers have apps as a service. You'll need a GitHub account or a GitLab account. I went GitHub, and then the actual ability to use that on your desktop. I'm actually going to use GitHub Desktop because I'm on a Windows machine, and the graphical interface that they offer is really quite nice. It's not something I would have expected saying about Microsoft 5 years ago, but it's pretty good utility. After you register your domain, there's one thing that you're going to want to do real quick. And so I used Google Domains. So in this case, you click on the domain. I've highlighted that here in red. And then you'll want to change your DNS name records to DigitalOcean's. What a DNS name server does is it points anybody who wants to look up your website at where the canonical version of your IP addresses are. We'll cover that in a little bit, but you'll want to do this because it takes a couple minutes for that to propagate if you go through this. So I just put this towards the top because you'll want to do this sooner than later, or else you'll be waiting around for it to actually take effect. So the first thing that we do is you're going to want to fork the repository. So this is basically you go to github.com, you can follow that link, or you go to the one that's in the Etherpad and you hit the fork button. And then you can go to GitHub Desktop. So this is going to be on your machine now. So this is the actual application. If you're you can also use the Git Bash, or if you're on Ubuntu or a Mac machine where you have it installed on Windows. But like I said, the GUI is just really, really nice. So I tend to use that. You clone it. Here I just searched for it, and then I found the repository that I just forked. And then it brings this up, and it lets you pick where you're going to put the repository. This just copies all the code that's on Git into this folder. And in this case, just make a note of this because we're going to be opening this in a second. I've been using PyCharm for this. There's a lot of ways to do this. It isn't actually a requirement. You can actually do all of the stuff that we're going to talk about in a text editor if you really want to. But I find that PyCharm is, there's a lot of convenience features. I know that Visual Studio Code is also common for this type of thing. So at any rate, you'll be greeted by this when you open PyCharm. And so all you have to do is hit the open button. and then point it at that repository, and then you'll have a fully functioning Django project. So the first thing that I do is I'm going to recommend you delete the database that's in there. So just a second ago, we talked a little bit about databases. I'll give you a little bit more of a detail now. So there's a couple different ways that you can go about this. The most common ways that you'll see websites implemented is with a full-fledged database server, is what it's called. The common ones are MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, SQL Server, that type of offering. There's a lot of benefits to that because these are, enterprise grade databases that have been around for a very long time. The downside is that if you're not a database administrator, you don't have much experience with them, it can be a little bit difficult to get them set up the first time, make sure you have connection strings and all that. There's another option that's called SQLite. So SQLite is just a database container. It's similar to Access in that way. Access is one of Microsoft's products. It basically is it's a file. So instead of setting up a server, instead of trying to connect over the network, you just point Python at a file and it treats it as a database. The major downside I would say with SQLite is that if you're going to be doing writes, it doesn't really work because it's a file. You can only one thing can access it at a time. So you're going to have it's called deadlock when two people try to do the same thing with a database at the same time. You don't want to do that. But for reads, it's great. You can actually, the SQLite database or the SQLite webpage itself is hosted with SQLite. I mean, you can do reads all day long and it doesn't have any problem. This particular project uses a SQLite database because I can just commit it to the repository. So with that all said, you want to delete it first because it has all that Latin junk that I was talking about, just the placeholder. So if you'll want to use it for yourself, you'll want to delete that first. And so you do that by just right-clicking on it and then deleting it. And then the next thing you'll want to do is perform a migration. The way that Django works for communicating with a database is it has an object relational mapper. In database speak, you have everything as a table. And so, but in Python, you have classes. So what an object relational mapper does is it maps your objects to tables. This migration takes models that I've already created, and you can find models in Django. Let me go over here. In the model, oh, not that one. There we go. So in this case, we only have one model. But what this does is it takes this project model and it makes a table where you have columns that are the same as the attributes here of this class. So you'll have a project table with title, description, body image, and detail image. So what you do is you click on the terminal and then you run manage.py migrate. And like I said, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because this is covered in like every Django tutorial out there. So I'm just going to gloss over that. We're just going to focus on deployment. So I'm going to go through what you would want to do if you wanted to change this for yourself. So if you go to templates.base HTML, you're going to be greeted with it's HTML with a little bit of actually in this case I don't think there's any Django markup. Yeah, so this is just pure HTML. You're going to get a placeholder here, and we're going to replace that with whatever text you want, and that change is going to basically, you see here it says Django sample project. That gets changed to whatever you put in there, and there's a reason for all this. We'll cover that in a second. The next thing that we're going to do is we'll change the headshot. So you see on mine, I have picture of 24-year-old Matt Kingsbury. So you are going to get just a generic placeholder image for that. And so we're going to replace that. And so what you want to do is just navigate to the static directory image, and you can actually just paste into this. So you copy wherever your image is on the file system, and you hit Control V and just write it right there, and then rename it headshot.jpg. Or if you want to keep it some other name, what you'd want to do is you'd want to go to homepage templates home. And actually, I don't think if we mentioned this or not, but I'll make this presentation available, the PowerPoint for it. So if you do want to go through this and actually use it, you can just follow along with the slides because it should be explanatory. Okay, what did it just say? Homepage templates home. Right here. And you can actually just change this to the path of the file. So in this case, I actually uploaded a PNG file, so I had to change that to a PNG. And then if you want to change these images right here, so in this case, I have 2 images that are just stock images. Oh, and if you're wondering, the images that I put in the repository, they are public domain, so there's no legal issues with those. I didn't steal anybody's stuff. I think I got it from Shutterstock, which they don't even make you attribute that, but I'm attributing it now. It's from Shutterstock. So what you'll do is let's see here. Oh, right. Okay. I made a convenience function here. There's a couple ways I could have done this. This is really actually hard-coded HTML, so I probably should have just made it hard-coded HTML, but it's actually dynamic. So that class that I was just talking about a second ago, this project class right here, you actually store 2 rows in the database, and those 2 rows get turned into these 2 items here, and then they have a detail page. So it's actually a nice way to learn Django if this is something that you haven't done before. But at any rate, I made a convenience function for you to insert into the database so that you don't have to go to the admin console and try to make this content every time you deploy. So that's found in projects, utils, and then populate data. So if you fork this from my repository, you'll get all that placeholder Latin text here. I've replaced this with some other text. And what you'll do down here, if you want to replace those images, the first image is what you see on this page. So right here, this is image dot, or actually, I don't remember what that one is. If you go here, let's see here, images. Yeah, there we go. So badges.png, that's this one right here. And then if you click on badges, you're going to see that this is badges 2. Oh, you probably can't see the tooltip, so that probably isn't visually helping you. Sorry. If I drag this up here, you'll see that it's badges 2. That probably makes a little bit more sense. So if you want to replace this with your own image and you want to have your own names, you'd put that here. And so in this case, I replaced it with, of course, all this information about Ash Ketchum, the 22-year-old or the 10-year-old with 22 years of experience, making him the ideal candidate apparently for all of these job openings. And in case you're wondering, I did do this entire site just so that I could make that joke. So moving along, let's see here. Yeah, we'll go ahead and populate that. So if you go back to the top level, there is a populate data script. You will just go ahead and run this. And if you haven't done this in PyCharm, you can actually just hit Control-Shift F10, and that'll add that to your configurations up here, and that way it'll run this script. And what that'll do is that's going to populate your database with those 2 rows, and we can, oh, I didn't add that as the database. Well, I can't show it to you, but it added those 2 rows. And then the final thing that we will do is we're going to run collect static. So this isn't explicitly necessary, but if you want to see the images when you run it locally, you'll want to run collect static because Django serves it from a separate directory. And all that collect static does is it takes all of the files that are meant to be not dynamic assets and puts them all in one directory. Then Django does some stuff under the covers that takes care of how you would actually deploy that. In a lot of cases, you'd use a content delivery network, a CDN. We actually won't be using that for this one because I couldn't quite get it working correctly. But what a content delivery network does is it takes all of the files that are larger, so images, videos, CSS files, or things that need to be faster in the case of CSS files, and it puts them really close to wherever the person accessing the site is. So if someone accesses mattkingsbury.com and they were in Europe and I was using a content delivery network, what might actually happen is they might load images from a server that's located in Europe. That way they're not going all the way across the ocean just to, get that headshot of me. They're just going to a server in Europe. And so if you, Django, like I said, has some of that built in. We won't be using it, but if you do the collect static, it puts everything in the right place so that if you were to do that, it would know where to look. And then, yeah, we won't go through this because if you wanted to follow along and do your own development, you could do this, but this is just showing you how PyCharm how you can run a local web server to view your website. And then, yeah, so that's what it would look like if you when you run it from PyCharm. So the next thing we're going to do is we'll go back to GitHub desktop and we'll make a commit. So in this case, the top image, you just need to make a comment. In this case, updated for my client. And then you hit commit to main, and then you push your changes. And if you've never used Git before, it actually is that simple. Like I said, the graphical user interface really simplifies some of that stuff. So it makes it very, very accessible. And then if you were to go to github.com and view this repository in your account, you would see your updated code with your updated database and everything. So now that we're ready with the changes that we've made, let's actually deploy it. So again, we're going to go to DigitalOcean. That's so that I basically chose that service because I have been using them for a very long time. There's lots of options for app deployment, so I'm not endorsing them or anything, although they've been really good to me and they're usually a little bit cheaper than some of the other services. So I figure that's a good a reason as any. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to networking. So that's down here on the bottom left of the menu that you'd be greeted with. And you're going to add the domain that you purchased earlier. And again, you're going to want to do this sooner just because sometimes this stuff takes a while to propagate. So I put this sort of thing towards the top. And then you go to the left side of the menu and click on apps. So this is a new service offering that they have. And like I mentioned sooner, they made no, they didn't make any attempt at hiding the fact that they just forked the open source Heroku code that it's out there. So that's, it's the same service as Heroku for as far as I can tell. Then you hit create app. And this is the cool part. So in this case, we're in GitHub. So you click on GitHub, you find your repository that you have just saved all these changes to. And then you'll be greeted with a couple of settings. In this case, it'll detect that it's a Django application, that it's Python. So you don't have to do that, but then it'll ask you what type of service this is. Since it's a Django application, it's a web service, but there's two other services that are really actually kind of cool. In this case, we could have gone with static site had I not chosen Django. And actually that if you're going to use it just for resume site, that actually might be the route that you want to take. There are some optimizations that they do that when you never have to worry about things being dynamic, it can just put the HTML in that content delivery network that we were talking about. So if you have a static site, you might actually want to go with that one. The other option is a generic app that's not meant to be front facing. So that would be something like you have a web scraper that needs to run every once in a while. You can actually put it here and then it'll run on whatever schedule you put it on. But for this case, we're going to choose web service because we're deploying a Django application. One thing that you need to do for the environmental variables is add Django allowed hosts. And what this does, and we didn't actually talk about this at all, DigitalOcean actually provides a repository for a stock Django app that is meant to be deployed by them. You actually can't use just a generic Django app. You actually have to have some stuff in the repository that they've prepared. And of course, you can copy it over. I actually wasn't able to get their own demo working though. I'm not sure what was wrong with it, but I've made enough changes that it works. So if you use mine as a start, it should work right away. They may have fixed it since then. But one of those things is they have this app domain in there. And so basically what that is saying is there's a variable in Django that's to prevent cross-site scripting. And this prevents that. So if you tried to access mattkingsbury.com, but you were coming from a different server, this would say like Django would say like, no, you can't do that. I'm mattkingsbury.com. That's the only place I'm allowed to host this from. Sorry. So it's a security precaution, but if you don't do this, then it won't work because you won't have the domain that you're actually running from. And then the last thing you have to do is change the build command to run that collect static command that we were talking about. And then change the run command to gunicorn, blah, 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 and add config.wsgi. This lets it look for that config file that we have that's in that repository. You really don't have to worry about any other changes. It just handles it. And then, name your web service, self-explanatory, put the region where you want it. And there's I'm getting ahead of myself. and then you'll finalize what type of service you want. So in this case, I just chose basic. It's $5 a month. The amount of traffic my sites get, that is probably still overkill. Do note that their default is actually $10 a month, even though the plan starts at $5. So that actually caught me off guard until I checked my bill and realized that I was paying twice as much as I was expecting. So I know why they do that. That's a little bit, I'm not a fan of that, but oh well. And if you have a bigger site, you can do pro or that sort of thing. But the $5 a month will easily handle an enormous amount of traffic for a personal website. And then you hit deploy, except you don't. And I didn't realize this until after I made it. So that will fail. And that is because there's something going on with the way that they're uploading the static files to the CDN. So we're actually going to disable that. So if you click on settings and then app settings, you're going to have to go to app level environment variables and disable collect static, set that to 1. And if anybody does figure out how that's where I need to open up a ticket because I would like to use their CDN, but I wasn't able to get it working. So if anyone figures that out, though, let me know. So if you do this, hit save, that will basically you're gonna host the pictures from the server, which, like I said, on a site where you're not expecting high volume, that's really not a big deal. And then hit deploy and wait around for a little bit. This is actually a really cool process, what they do. So this is what I was telling you about earlier. They have basically a CI/CD pipeline built into this, which means that when you make a change to your GitHub repository, DigitalOcean's constantly pinging GitHub and it says, hey, has there been a change to that repository? No. Has there been a change to that repository? Oh, yes, great. Let's do this. It then nukes your entire website and starts at 100% from scratch. And so it does that under the covers by doing some Docker magic. Basically, and if you're worried that when you make a change to your GitHub that your site won't be accessible, it actually does the change transparently. So it detects that change, it builds your Docker image while the other site is still being hosted, and then when it's finished with the compilation and whatever else that it needs to do, and says, oh, it's ready to go, then it takes the other one down and transparently puts the other one in its place. So you don't need to worry about making commits and bringing your site down. And if for some reason your commit breaks the site, it won't replace it either. It will still have the old one up until you actually have working code. And then you will get a deploy successfully if you've followed all the steps, and you can click on that link to go to the local version of it, or if the DNS, oh, actually, we're going to take care of that now. So the last thing you'll want to do is set it up so it goes to your domain. So again, you go over to settings, and I actually didn't put that in the picture. So let me show you what that looks like. So you go to settings, and then let's see, where is that? Domains. Yep, settings, app settings. Oh, and this is actually not the most intuitive design I've seen. So you have app settings, and then you actually have the Django settings right here. So that's a button. So if you're pulling your hair out trying to figure out where that is, those you can't find one of the settings, just click on one of these, and it's probably in the other one. I can see why they do it now that I have deployed some stuff, because you can add a database here and it's all under the same umbrella. But if you only have one, it's a little bit confusing. So you go to domains, you edit your domain, and then add domain. And then if you've added it properly in the networking section, it shows up right here. And then we have a working website deployed straight from the platform app as a service on DigitalOcean. So working web application. So that's all.
Nice.
And I don't know if we need to, we can open that up for questions if we want to. I'm not a front-end expert, but I can do it. I can see what I can do, what I can answer.
Yeah.
Well, and you have lots of other expertise on here too. This is.
So one thing that I think is really cool on AWS is they will allow you to have your different, you'll have your deployment, but then they'll have different websites for your development as well as for your deployment, as well as testing. Does this website also do the same thing, DigitalOcean?
I wasn't. I haven't actually poked around for it. I don't think they do. I actually, you'll notice that if you're looking at that a second ago, I have a couple apps deployed, and so that basically was my testing. I just deployed a different project. They might though. If you're looking for more serious types of deployment, I'd probably investigate that because that sounds like a really fantastic feature to have.
Yeah.
Other questions for Matt?
Yeah, I remember that DNS thing, setting up a website being tricky.
Takes forever too, and here's the issue. So actually here, let me share real quick. So, do I have it up? Yeah, let me go back over here. So one thing you're going to want to notice about DNS that it took me like forever to figure out is that a lot of times you'll see people put default values in, and you don't always want to go with those default values, especially if you're deploying. So this is what that looks like in DigitalOcean. So here's that domain. So you're going to get, your name server right here. So this is the default. You can leave those as the default. Right now, you can see ashketchen.org is going to this IP, which was assigned by the app container, basically. And you notice this has a really short TTL, and I put that there intentionally. So this is 30 seconds. So this is going to lead to insanely awful performance because every time it goes to the site, basically, it's going to be like, hey, is that still at 104.1624378? So you can actually set this to something that's like much higher, like a day in seconds is really common. But if you're developing, leave this as short as possible, because if you don't, what'll happen is this will get propagated to all the various places on the internet. And so let's say you put the wrong IP address in, or you have to decommission something and then you want to put in a different server. Well, there's a pretty good chance that someone else will still have that old IP address. And so it'll take like a day to figure out to actually test your deployments and everything. So put the TTL as short as humanly possible when you're developing and you will avoid lots of hair pulling.
That's a good pro tip.
If you're anything like me, at least.
Do people have other pro tips on this? The dev stage prod separation is a good pro tip too.
Any other question? Going once, going twice. Well, thanks again, Matt. Great chat. I still remember being like a 8-year-old something coding HTML on some file. It was Netscape. Oh, I still remember Netscape in a computer lab, and still remember asking the teacher wait, how do I get this on the internet? And I think the response was a mix of I don't know and why the heck would anybody want to see your website, Ferris? So
little did they know.
Yeah.
If only they had DigitalOcean back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because back then I had that too. I had 6th grade computer. Well, it was computer class.
Yeah.
And we did HTML, and it was the same deal at the time. It was I was using Windows 98. So. Yeah. Just self-hosted on your Windows 98 machine. I can't think of any problems with that. That's secure.
Oh, it's gotten a lot better. That's for sure. One thing before we hop onto the raffle, Gabby, I believe you had a better procedural animation demo that we could take maybe 90 seconds on. Still keen to do that?
1 second. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me 1 second, let me just get everything going. Okay, can y'all, let's see. Okay, I'm visible. Okay, let's share the screen. Okay. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries. You're saving my butt.
Doing my best. Okay, yeah, I just had to make sure I'm sharing the right monitor. So I have 4 monitors. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. Okay, okay, so here in Blender. Okay, So this is not a plugin that I wrote myself, but you should be able to see that this, yeah. So this is a plugin that I've used though a fair bit in my modeling. It's called Discombobulator. It's basically like a Greebler, if you're familiar with that concept in like sci-fi production design. It's kind of the idea that you just like stick a bunch of detail on something to make it look high tech. So yeah, this is a plugin that does that for Blender. Yeah, it's about less than 900 lines long. It's just this. Yeah, and I can show what it does real quick.
I think everybody here's like, yep, that's Python.
Yeah. I don't know how much the compression is working it. Yeah. So let's see. What am I doing? What's the error it's giving me?
Failed to find.
Yeah. Let's see. I might want to be doing it at this layer.
Edit mode? Oh.
Yeah, it's under is particular. Add shift. Oh, let's see. Okay, yeah, let's see. It should.
Just on a face.
Come on. I was just doing this. It was just working when I tried it an hour ago. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Let me just make a new mesh 1 second. I've mostly been using Blender lately for like really low poly models. So I haven't been using the plugins as much lately. Let's find. Oh, it's because I'm editing them. Oh, it's because I'm editing it. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. Maybe it'll let me do it in this scripting mode. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So here's the Python. Let me exit out of this real quick. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have a lot of like awesome stuff in the background. Of course.
Yeah, I was going to show another kind of procedural thing that I'm doing in my game. It's not in Python, but it's similar to the kind of thing that you could do in Blender. It's the exact same kind of stuff. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, now it's working.
Yay.
Okay, so yeah, just a little interface. 1 second. I had just 1 second. Where's Notepad++? Yeah. So yeah, so you can see like here's the Discombobulator plugin. Yeah, you can see it's the same thing. And then here, yeah, so I can just set minimum height, maximum height, just the kind of thing you just mess around with, figure out what your want. Let's do make doodads. Okay. Well, okay, that's maybe too maximum height. It's a little too greebled, but yeah, but like let's do 1. Oh yeah, let's do 0.1 and then yeah, and then yeah, so just kind of adding detail like this, and it's just all procedural. So you know, similarly, something I've been doing, and what I was going to do for this project initially is in my game, I have this procedural kind of low, because it's a kind of a low poly old style game. I have this procedural low poly fire I was going to port into Blender, which I didn't get the time to do, unfortunately, but you can kind of see it here. This would be the, like, this is like not even that many. This is like not very many lines of code, so it would be pretty easy to port over something like this that's just like procedurally generating a mesh and then, you know, changing it over time. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing you can do in Blender with Python.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd spend way too much time on the physics of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just doing the particle system. I'm just like letting Unity's particle system handle that, but it's
that's much smarter. You're gonna have a game in the end, and I'm just gonna have a really cool fire.
Yeah, I'm doing my best not to fall down the procedural rabbit hole. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but yeah, yeah, no. So that's that. Yeah. Any questions with that? Yeah, Blender is pretty similar. It's just like I said, or like I showed. Yeah, it's just got a scripting interface built in, so it's super easy to get up and going.
Yeah, and that scripting interface it's legit. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Any other questions? Let's move on to the raffle then. Boom. Share. Code. Share. And can everybody see this all right? Should be seeing a VS Code
Yeah, we
window.
see it.
Yeah, okay,
Enjoy.
excellent. If you haven't had a chance yet, you need to join Meetup 2021 0505, which is the Slack channel. Because what I'll do is I'll just copy and paste who I see in there, and that will be how I select our 2 raffle prize winners tonight. So while people are joining that channel, let me just show this one, and oh, that one's over
Do you have a link to it?
I linked it in I pasted a link in the Zoom chat. But and then yeah. Were you able to find it, Leaf?
Yeah, just doing it right now.
Excellent. So while that's getting pulled up, we are giving away a PyPortal and another Pi badge with TensorFlow. So this Pi badge has TensorFlow on it. No, wait, not this one. Nope, this is not the TensorFlow one, but I will give away the TensorFlow one. But it looks like the same thing. What's cool about using TensorFlow is that you can encode a model using CUDA on like a host system and then copy that model over to a tiny device like this. So for example, let's say you have a microphone and a sound recognition model, you could put it onto this device and you'd have some machine learning at the edge, as they call it these days. So that's what's nifty about this form factor, and has a bunch of buttons, and all of these little dots are RGB LEDs, which you can individually program, and lots of inputs. So you could put a speaker on there if you wanted. There is a specific lithium battery. It has like the charging circuitry ready to go. And of course, everything on this runs Python. So pretty nifty. Then that's the Pi badge. The PyPortal also runs Python, doesn't have any inputs other than the this reset button and an accelerometer. But it has, oh, that's cool. Anyway, it has SD card input, and you can also hook it up to the web with Wi-Fi. So it has a built-in Wi-Fi card. So that means that you could put some Python code that makes a request to a web server and then displays it on here. So one of the demo apps is like a quote of the day kind of thing. So that is our PyPortal. Both of these run Python, so we're giving away one of each. Yeah, so let's see, we got a bunch of people. Anybody still having issues getting into the channel? Going once, going twice. Okay, must be present in 212505 to win. So this is who I have in the channel, and we're gonna split it, and then it should tell us the winner. So hopefully this works. Matt, you are our first winner, Matt
Nice.
White. And I will make a note of it in here.
That's great.
And who's our second winner? Drum roll. And this is what I really wanted to do with Blender, was like have it spell out the winner at the end, but whatever. Matt again, but the other Matt, Kingsbury.
Woohoo!
Yay. All right, and our next meeting will be June 2nd, that first Wednesday in June. It'll still be online, but we are planning on something probably after that meetup, but before like October or September, where we'll get together in person and we'll do it in a way that's safe, that people are comfortable with, and it's probably going to be extremely informal and more of a let's let off steam. And I don't know, we'll kick like a ball around, or we'll kick like an old MacBook around or something. I don't know, something like that. Should be fun. And stay safe out there, everybody. And man, I don't know, this whole it's been kind of a wild trip, but I couldn't have picked a better group of people to be, a part of. So yeah, thanks for everybody for being you. And I'm gonna stop the recording right here. So goodbye, online people.